Hi, I'm Danny Queen. Welcome to another exciting edition of Color Me Poetry this afternoon. Today I have with me my good friend in the person of Dr. C.R. Gibbs, and he's here with us once again. One more again, I'd like to say he's back with us. And Doc, you've really had a great impact on my life and what you taught. When I think about Kwanzaa, when we had Kwanzaa at Union Temple back in December, and you just laid it all out. And I just want to thank you personally, brother, for the lessons that you teach, the life lessons, really. And welcome to Color Me Poetry, man.
I am pleased and honored to be here, Brother Danny.
Now, today we're going to talk about history in general, but I want to say history, to me, is not just a roadmap, but a modern GPS, if you will. Why history? What makes history important? Let's just start there.
Well, we can start with Brother Malcolm's observation that of all of the disciplines, history is the best that will reward research. When in today's hurried climate, when people seem not to have enough time for almost anything, if you have a question, you can at least find out what you need to know. If you wonder how it is that we came to be and why are we in the condition that we are, the first place you must go is history.
So what is a direct connection to what is.
Absolutely,
and
absolutely.
why it is.
When John Henry Clark says that its history is a clock by which people tell what time of day it is, I can think of no more sage observation than what he meant, because it is how we measure. We measure the present against the past. We are the sum of our yesterdays and the hope for our tomorrows.
Well, another phrase from Dr. John Henry Clark, and you can tell me your assessment of what he means. He said all history is a current event.
We are all captives of the history. History impacts us. It's like how we are constantly bombarded with protons, neutrons, and electrons. They're the stuff of who we are, but they're the stuff of everything around us. And history is that same way. Even when we think we are beyond certain motifs and ideas, we're not that far beyond them. We may not be at all. I found this out recently. When I was speaking at one of DC's toniest private high schools, and they're having an issue over passing. There's a wonderful organization of young sisters, young women of color that invite everybody, but they're particularly young women of color to join. But there are 8 young Asians and young Latinx who don't want to join because they really don't want to call their attention to themselves by joining what is a predominantly black female organization. But they're honest enough to admit that they're what they call white passing. In other words,
Passing is new though.
No, and that's what I mean.
That go way back.
Yeah. So and that's what I mean. There are plenty of black folk that, we're beyond all that. No, we ain't beyond
We
it.
ain't beyond anything like that.
We ain't beyond it.
It ain't post-racial.
It ain't post-racial. These kids are struggling with that now. They have come to realize that they cannot fully claim who they are because there's a price. And that even if they believe in the aims and objectives of this organization, they don't think they can join because it's too black. It's too,
They see
it's
this
too
as
much
a negative.
Color. Yeah. So the term that they came up with, not me, is white passing. Because they know that, first of all, they ain't Caucasian, they're not European.
So how's it gonna be white passing on you ain't white?
Well,
I don't understand.
What they're believing is if I don't call attention to myself, if
You
I
can
don't
get by.
join anything, I can pass by.
They don't know your personal
They don't
color?
know. They don't. In case, certainly with some of the Latina students, apparently they think, if they don't look too deep, don't ask any questions, I can get by. Now the Asians, that's something else. I'm not gonna deal with that
as
part.
black folk in this country, we've been there and done that.
Been there and done that. Got
That
a
ain't
t-shirt.
new to us, really.
But it's just a reminder of how when young people want to believe they're past stuff, that, as a friend of mine said, his daughter told him, "Oh, Dad, that stuff's way back in the day."
That's
and
fascinating.
dismissively, "No, we're not where you think we are. We have not reached the summit of the mountain. In fact, we're nowhere near the top."
Wow, Doc. And that brings me to a piece I'd like to share. Man, I took my shades on here, my specs. But this piece is simply entitled Chocolate Rainbow, Shades of Black. Okay? White, black, brown, red, yellow, and tan, all shades of the rainbow come from the original man. The missing link to what we as a people lack is loving who we are in all shades of black. Mocha, sepia, sable, red bone, cinnamon, mahogany, pearl. Children of the sun, living in a color-struck world. You can't possess the soul essence of somebody else, so to love and know who you are is to be yourself. Beyond our shackles of sick color-struck shame, as a people, we are all colored one and the same. The one-drop rule will always undervalue and demean the wannabes, the jigaboos, and every shade in between. Black on black love is soul power validation, despite our brown bag, blue vein indoctrination. Intra-race prejudice, preference, and pride are reflections of a past that cannot be denied. As a human rainbow with the wind at our back, the power of self-respect comes in all shades of black. Honey brown, peanut butter, vanilla chocolate, copper tone, cocoa maple, nocturnal rose, raven brick, house brownstone. Whatever shade of ebony to ivory you might be, black is black. I am you and you are me. From ruby red brown to a black walnut pecan, lemon strawberry peach to a beach sand colored tan. The missing link to what we as a people lack is loving who we are in all shades of black. Chocolate rainbow.
All right, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about.
And again, these young ladies are trying. They're welcome. Please join us. We're all in this together. But there's no, well, maybe I can just get by. I don't call attention to myself. And again, when you cannot be who the Creator made you, there's something wrong. When you feel the need to hide who you are. And we've been seeing this for quite some time. We know of young black folks who bleach their resumes, whiten their resumes. So even if their name is Lakeisha J. Johnson, they show up and it's L.J. Johnson. They take out references to their work with the Black Student Union or the fact that they used to sponsor Kwanzaa. That all of that's gone. That's gone. And they don't seem to understand that there are employers who seek that kind of cultural experience out. They're hurting themselves by trying to hide who they are.
I like you said they bleached their resume, but not only they bleached their skin too.
yeah, that's still going on as well.
That's happening as well.
We are not where we think we are, and despite the inclination of uninformed people to say that's way back in the day, we can look beyond that. No, you better assess where you are from where you stand today.
It's funny how we're told, slavery, that was just way back. We shouldn't live in the past. Yeah, but if you go downtown to some of these parks and stuff downtown, who you see in the park? On statues in the park. White folk on statues and stuff, but they tell us forget the past. But when they look at the Jewish Holocaust, they act like it happened yesterday afternoon. But they tell us, oh, forget about slavery. Yeah, see, it's the same thing.
People want us to jettison our past because it makes them uncomfortable, because it exposes the inner horror of the so-called American dream. Enslavement is the sucking chest wound in the American psyche, and it ain't nowhere near healed. And until we address this, we are not where we should be, and we won't be headed to where we need to be. As the editors of the 1619 Project observed, slavery gave America a fear of black people and a taste for violent punishment. Both of these are aspects of the criminal justice system today. When Faulkner's obzation that the past is not yet past. I mean, my man hit the ball out of the park, because we are still very much prisoners of our past. But when there's a different judgment system, when black folk want to hold up their past.
Yes, always.
So we've got to move beyond that. And if I can give you an example of another place that I spoke last month, it's Macedonia Baptist Church, right on River Road.
Okay.
Right on River Road. As you come out of the DC line, if you have a stout arm, you can throw a rock from the border of DC, from River Road, across Little Falls Parkway, right to this little African American church on a hill. But as many of our listening friends might know, and watching friends, River Road is considered upscale these days. And yet we have a reminder. And as it turns out, they're celebrating their centennial, I believe it is, this weekend. They are under siege. They're under siege on two fronts. People want to remove them from the present, right on River Road, and they want to continue to hide the cemetery, which is now under several layers of tar, and an apartment building sits on it. And yet, these are reminders that we face similar struggles all across the country to preserve, rescue, and recognize not only our past, but our present as well.
Sometimes the past crosses the present, and the future is intertwined in that.
In traditional African society, there were those who believed that we stood at the nexus, at the junction of those who had gone on before, those who were yet to come, and those who are here today. And in a little place like Macedonia that is fighting Montgomery County, to be recognized, to have their place safe, and to have their cemetery preserved and recognized in the 21st century. And the bones are there, they know that, but we get this story again and again and again, whether it's Freedman Cemetery in Old Town Alexandria. There are forgotten burial grounds all across the District of Columbia as well.
All over.
All over. And it's I know about it in Canada as well as across the United States, and even most recently in the state of Florida.
Now, I'm looking at your book, Black Inventors. Now, pass me that, Doc?
Sure.
Now, why you write this book, Doc? I mean, look at this. This is beautiful.
I think.
Why was it necessary to write a book like that?
I didn't realize that there would be such a thing when I wrote the book as STEM or STEAM. It is even more necessary today to acquaint young people with our past and also our intellectual history. Wow. That despite the fact that the current inhabitant of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue thinks that Africa is full of S-hole countries.
Yeah, that's what he said.
The truth is that the first elements of science and art, of mathematics, come to us from old Africa. And so to sort of put that together in a compendium is the main reason I wrote Black Inventors from Africa to America, subtitled 2 Million Years of Invention and Innovation. 2 million, because that is our past. I tell people repeatedly, if your STEM or STEAM has the young people starting in Greece or Rome, that is, you're coming into a 3-act play at the beginning of Act 2. You missed Act 1 altogether. So it is necessary that you begin where humanity began and where the first seeds of invention and innovation were grown.
Now, I'm sure that African Americans have invented things, many things, I'm sure, and have not get the credit for it.
Oh,
especially
all the time. All the time.
Coming out of slavery.
Coming out of slavery. I particularly recall a man in Mississippi whose enslaved man, Ned, invented an agricultural device. Well, his owner wrote the Attorney General saying, can I get credit for my enslaved man's invention? Because we already know from Dred Scott that
wasn't the cotton gin, was it?
No, it wasn't the cotton gin. Although the first cotton gin in the state of Mississippi was made according to specifications drawn by an enslaved African American. So we have this if you will, aura of history. It's not only aura, but actual achievement, all in the corners, in the closets of history. And again, another reason for black inventors is to say that the inventive genius we saw on this side of the Atlantic
Yes.
began on the
other
other
side
side of the Atlantic,
Yes.
and that it is a one continuous, unbroken thread. And imagine black men and women contributing under the most negative circumstances
Yes.
that you can imagine: enslavement, death, torture, rape, mutilation, and still coming up with stuff as this enslaved black man in Mississippi did before the Civil War. The answer his owner got was, no, you can't patent a slave's invention. But the man went ahead and publicized it and made money off of it.
Anyway.
No,
it wasn't his.
Even though it wasn't his. Even though it wasn't
so
his.
he figured, well, I own him, so I own anything he might do.
The product of his intellect is mine. So,
you own it.
and that story is in Black Inventors from Africa to America. But it joins so many others. Every time folk take a puff out of a cigarette, the bright yellow leaf that's in today's cigarettes was initially found through experimentation by an unknown enslaved black man. So the tobacco, I mean, it just not the uncured flavor. We're talking about cured, what's called bright leaf tobacco. That was one of our ancestors that came up with the idea to cure that till it got that color and put it inside a paper sleeve.
Wow.
So, these are
many things.
Yeah, it's many. I mean, large and small, and we know that this continues all the way down to Lonnie Johnson and the super soaker water gun. So, that's another example of where a brother is getting paid. He doesn't get a royalty.
Yeah.
So we,
they would have taken it from him.
But this is one of the surprising things about our past. And why, when we look at the first hammers, the first hatchets, the first awls, the first axes come out of old Africa, we cannot start STEM with the Greeks and Romans, because even they recognized the contributions of earlier civilizations, particularly those in the Nile Valley. So if they recognized it, then how is it that we can do less than recognize what they recognize as so much of the inspiration for their intellectual output?
So this is monumental here, Doc. And now, what year did this one come out? The Black Inventors?
I wrote that in the 80s. Yeah, it's in there. I believe it should be. I know Brother Dexter. He rests proudly with the ancestors right now. Maybe it's on the next page, but he put the year in there somewhere. But it's in the 1980s.
In the 80s? Oh wow!
Yeah.
You go that far back.
And apparently I wrote the foreword. No, that's a colleague of mine. But I believe I did update it slightly in the 90s.
Yes,
but I believe it came up in the 1980s, and we redid it in 2000.
Oh wow! So originally in the 80s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because I did a smaller book called The Afro-American Inventor. Oh, okay. And then I felt the need to expand that, and that was 1976. So so what grew out of my desire to expand the Afro-American inventor was Black inventors from Africa to America. Couldn't tell half the story.
Dr. Gibbs, as a historian, did history choose you, or did you choose history? What sparked your interest in history?
It chose me.
It chose.
And from the earliest, I would and those of you who listening have heard the story about me sitting in the library at Hine Junior High School, which no longer exists. Well, you could say it's been joined with Elliott, but in the days when it was on Capitol Hill near Eastern Market, I would be in the library, man, reading while the kids were playing in the playground. What? And that was junior high school. It had already caught and captured me, and every time I tried to move away from it, the elders and the ancestors brought me back to it and said, no, we got plans for you, Junior.
Wow.
We want you to tell our story. And it's been my honor to do that for more than 4 decades now.
Wow.
Yeah.
To continue telling that story.
Yeah, I'm honored to do it. I don't feel pressed, and as the elder said, no ways tired of telling it truthfully, telling it respectful of the travails of our ancestors, all they went through. And remember what Dr. John Henry Clark used to say, we got to leave a record. We got to leave a record. We are not in such an environment where we can automatically assume that those who oppressed us are going to suddenly do a 180 degrees, and we're going to educate you now, and the things we said about you last week, we're going to toss in the dustbin of forgetfulness.
I remember Dr. John Henry Clark. He said, I only debate my equals, all others I teach.
Amen. Amen.
I said, wow.
Don't mess with the old
That's
man.
what he said. He said, all others I teach.
And he because he had been part of the intellectual cadre of Malcolm X. I mean, this is why we are still in awe of the sayings, the wisdom of Malcolm X.
Yes.
But Malcolm understood that he had to have a backup team and of the smartest, sharpest brothers and sisters, so that when he moved out into the public, he wasn't just running on nonsense, he was running on fact in the day. And we come from in traditional African society where fact, accuracy was esteemed above everything else. This is why whether we call them griots or jegnas or jallies, the accuracy, if you got it wrong, it might cost you your life in some societies. It was so esteemed. This is why we are flummoxed by the turn of this society to engage in falsehood and hold that up as the standard. And when you know it is, that's a double sin.
Wow, this amazed me when I found out that Dr. John Henry Clark was a student of Dr. Ben. I was like, okay, wow. Dr. Ben, a scholar.
Yeah, Joseph Ben Jockin.
Scholar within a scholar. And then Dr. Clark was a student. I'm like, oh my goodness. And I listened to there's a documentary on Dr. John Henry Clark, and he said he taught for 3 generations before he got his PhD. He said, I got all of them now. He said, but he taught for 3 generations before he ever got his PhD.
Hunter College did a great thing, and I do a presentation on the life of Dr. John Henry Clark. In fact, I'll be scheduling that in the fall, this coming fall. And as you know, I do presentations all year round at the library.
Yes. Also, what we got here? You want to mention it?
Yes, if I could.
Please.
Brothers and sisters, I'm at 3 libraries this month. The one coming up earliest is at Greenbelt Library. Y'all know where Greenbelt is, 11 Crescent Road in the heart of old Greenbelt. And March 10th, The Amazing True Story of Black Pirates, Ancient and Modern. That's March 10th, 7 p.m. at the Greenbelt Library, 11 Crescent Road, The Amazing True Story of Black Pirates, Ancient and Modern. On the very next day, I am at the Woodridge Library. Now, Woodridge, y'all, not Woodbridge. I'm not saying
Woodridge,
go down 95 into Virginia. I'm talking about Woodridge Library, 18th and Rhode Island Avenue Northeast at 7 o'clock, where I will be doing On the Cutting Room Floor, African American Women in Film. That's March 11th, African American Women in Film on the Cutting Room Floor at 7 o'clock at the Woodridge Library. And then on the 19th of March, I will be at the Deanwood Library at 7 o'clock for Black Spies and Scouts of the Civil War. Usually when we enter that area, well, people know one person, that's Harriet Tubman. I'm going to talk about a whole lot more black men and women who risked their lives in secret under the cover of night with the utmost courage in order to give. Many people know that black soldiers now fought for the Union and helped to save the country and restore national democracy and end slavery. But there was another area of contribution, and that was espionage. That was espionage.
Will you talk about that for a minute, Doc?
Sure. When we talk about the contributions of black folk to the successful prosecution of the Civil War, the victory, we know that they toted and fetched, that they drove wagons, and we know that they served in uniform. But I want to talk about in that lecture for black spies and scouts of the Civil War, those men and women of African descent who were out of uniform, who often wore disguises, who had passwords, and have you understand that one of Lincoln's greatest spy masters, Alan Pinkerton, a name that for many years represented the ultimate detective, that he relied on black spies in order to accumulate and relay information. The Dabneys, a husband and wife, invented one of the most unique signaling systems. Here they are about 80 miles outside DC. One is on the Confederate side of the river, the other is on the Union side, and yet they have developed a signaling system that allowed them to Brother Dabney to relay accurate information to the Union forces on his side of the river. And I'll tell you what it is. Clothesline, a clothesline telegram. A clothesline telegram.
Clothesline?
A clothesline telegram.
How did that work?
He would observe across the river, and his wife, they had assigned names, if you will, to the shirts. And so when she moved a red shirt down the clothesline, that represented Longstreet, the Southern general. And Lee was another item of clothing. When she moved him that way, then Lee was going another way.
Signs and symbols.
Yeah, signs and symbols. And so this was in the very nest of the rebel army. Sis is sending information across the river. The Union soldiers, the white Union officers, how's Dabney? How's he doing this? Where is he getting this? And it was accurate information.
Wow.
They said, where's the brother getting this stuff? And he was getting it from his wife. They had worked out a code.
System,
this is why you cannot. Another example our listeners might like is in the great novel by Frances Ellen Watkins Harper. It's called Iola Leroy. Okay. And in the first chapter, which is called Mystery of Market Speech, she reveals how black folk developed a code language to keep each other apprised of the progress of battle. And so
we couldn't use the drum no more.
No, we couldn't use the drums anymore. So that was becoming a lost art form. So they developed a language where she gave an example of a brother, let's call him Robert, coming into the house and discussing with, the eggs weren't fresh this morning. The butter was rancid, stale. Well, that was a key that there had been a Confederate victory. But on the days when the Union had triumphed over the rebels, the eggs sure are good today, fresher than ever. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful. Butter, never sweeter. So this is how, and then that went down through the quarters. It went down the verbal telegraph we had, because the grapevine. We were always invested in the course of the war. Even today, you have historians trying to say that we had no role, we had no interest, we didn't care. Of course, we cared. Our freedom was on the line, and there was nothing else. We couldn't do anything else but participate in ways known and unknown for the final victory.
And that was the beauty of what we did, our contribution.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Wow. That's something when you think about, because nobody talks about that.
No.
The contribution in that respect.
In that respect, and this is why you cannot assume. One of the great fallacies of that's foisted on us in terms of our history is that our history is, not to disparage these individuals, but it's more than Dr. King and Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman. It's so much more than that. And there is Black history before slavery. So we've got to tell this story. I spoke at Dunbar last week, and I overheard a conversation by which the instructor, and I think that's why he asked me to come by, is because the children had never heard of ancient African empire.
Really?
Yeah.
How old were these kids?
It's high school.
What?
High school. They didn't know anything about it.
Goodness.
But when you think about it, where is absent the activity of their grandparents or parents, where are they going to learn about Kemet or Kush or Aksum or Ghana or Mali or something? Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get it. There's, I could say more about places you could go where you won't learn about it, but I'm going to leave that alone.
You can go to some universities.
You can go to some universities, you can go to some museums and still not learn that we had a past before slavery.
Yes.
And so again, I never fault the children. They didn't know, but they were going to learn. And so it was my honor to stay 2 days at Dunbar and teach the young people about a past. Well, they're getting ready to graduate. That they may encounter it in college, and they may not.
Wow, depends on where they are.
It depends on where they are. Now,
but you have to have a thirst for knowledge.
You
as
do,
an individual.
But sometimes it can be created if you are exposed. This is why we say expose your children. And you've heard me say this any number of times. Many Black parents they go along to get along. I did not have the leeway to tell my parents what I would or would not do or go.
Most of us didn't.
I didn't have that. I can't speak to anybody.
No, I didn't have it either.
Yeah, but now, well, if Johnny doesn't want to do, no, it's too important. They're going to learn everybody else's history, so why not learn theirs? Why not ground yourself? And many times I tell people, think of history and remember your high school graduation picture. And remember that the first thing you did when it came back from the photographer is you looked for yourself.
Of course.
You look for yourself. You didn't look for somebody else. Then you look for your crew, your boys.
Where am I?
But the first thing you did was center yourself in that experience. That is essentially, Brother Danny, what history is. You center yourself in the tide of human events, and then you can work outward. But seeing yourself, and I say that one of the most valuable things that parents can do, family history, your genealogy. Center yourself so that when the children are reading about Africa or racism or slavery, we don't have to have them try to focus on people that they don't know. Have them start with the history inside their own DNA. That's right, in their family. It's already there. And if you don't know, then make it a task for you and your children to go to the archive. And of course, when I started with that kind of stuff, we didn't have an internet. So it's nothing for me.
It's in the palm of our hand now.
And so it is frustrating, and that here we have the first generation of young Black folk that have more information at their fingertips than any previous generation of African people in the history of our community, and they seem to know, collectively speaking, less about themselves. And less about their family.
And got it all right in the palm of your hand.
You just have to know where to look.
Wow. I'd like to share a piece, Doc, get your response to it. This is not my piece, but it's my brother's piece, James Gibbs Queen. And it's simply entitled House of Horror. We disturbed this program to bring you a bulletin. Equality is dead, drowned in the bathtub of deceit by its wicked stepmother, liberty. While in the adjacent room, the unworthy father, democracy, attempts to sleep off the intoxicating effects of ingesting too many unkept promises. And down the hall, the ancient yet withering, ever-present withering nanny, racism, wears a sinister snare. As she spoon-feeds poisonous leftovers of hatred to their only offspring, justice. This has been a test to be continued.
My goodness. My goodness. That is awesome. That is awesome. And it points to the dual nature And Du Bois talked about this. So he
Yes.
talked about our double consciousness.
Mhm.
As Americans, we have this consciousness of our condition, but we have this awareness of the rhetoric that is antipodal to our condition. We hear constantly about liberty and justice and freedom, and yet our history is not one that embraces these very concepts. How is it? We live in a cocoon of cognitive dissonance, and we wonder why we have these headaches, if you will, these
Come on
spiritual
now.
headaches,
Yes.
because the stuff don't fit. It doesn't.
It wasn't
fit.
made to fit.
No, I mean, all you have to do is look at it and see the pieces in this jigsaw puzzle, no matter how you move it around, will never fit.
Yes, he did say that. And I guess what he's saying is survival skills. You know, learning survival skills, that double consciousness, we've always had to do that
Yes, yes.
in order to survive. I mean, other folk didn't have to do that, but because our history is not the same as other folk, other people of color who come to this country, we have to have a double consciousness to survive.
Yes, and sometimes, we'll meet brothers and sisters of African descent, but they come from someplace else. They have to learn that. Nobody cares. Once you get in this country, it's only the color of your skin. They don't care.
True.
They ain't worried about, oh, well, I'm Haitian, and so I.
They don't care.
The people most likely to bust you upside your head don't care where you come from. You black it in the U.S. right now.
When they stop you on a dark night, these police stop you on the dark night somewhere when the lights burn. They don't care what your religion is or what country you came
The
from.
footage, this video of this young brother that the New York's cop just beat up. He could have said, I'm Ghanaian, I'm Nigerian. It wouldn't have made a single bit of
Wouldn't have made
difference.
no
He was a black youth caught by himself, by a hostile police. And even though the commissioner of the police claimed in an interview where the mayor was sitting next to him, he saw, he was struggling. No, he wasn't struggling. He was getting beat upside the head by 3 or 4 policemen. If anything, he was struggling to avoid the blows, if you want to call attempting to avert pain, that sort of thing.
Unlynch your mind, the Willie Lynch state of mind. When made in America, from the cradle to the grave, the merchants of emasculation are masters at making a slave. Because as long as white supremacy holds the world in the palm of its hand, lynch law justice will always be the law of the land. For to break one's spirit is to command the soul. The lack of self-love is the master key to control. And until we take the psychological chains off our mind, they will always find a way to turn back the hands of time. So the plantation of the mind will never die until we face the truth of our fears and stop living a lie. For the sake of self-love and those that know the time, people of color all over the world are in a Willie Lynch state of mind. And until we take the psychological chains off our mind, Uncle Sam, Jim Crow, and Willie Lynch will always turn back the hands of time. For when made in America, from the cradle to the grave, the merchants of emasculation are masters at making a slave. Unlynch.
Amen. Amen. Frederick Douglass mentions how in his second autobiography, My Bondage to My Freedom, how the ministers wanted to use religion and to further confuse. So they would preach out of the Paul and say, slaves, obey your masters, and this sort of thing. But Douglass notes that he and at least the brothers that were with him, when he made his first escape attempt, was unsuccessful. People forget that at a place called Freeland Farm. But there was one brother, I believe he calls him Sandy, that probably listened a little too closely and was more interested in being a good Negro. And that ultimately would be the man that Douglass believed would turn their escape attempt into the authorities.
Negro.
He was a good Negro, the best kind. And
Good for who? Good for what?
Good for who and good for what? If that infamous saying, the only good Indian is a dead Indian, the only good Negro was a good Negro. And as far as too many races are concerned, then as well as now. So when you fight against injustice, when you recognize and call out deceit of a capital order, you will oftentimes find yourself by yourself, because
Yeah,
it takes a unique amount of courage, and particularly in today's environment. I spoke of the federal agencies that I spoke to last month. One, I was interviewed by three people on the phone. You know, they wanted, because they're so nervous that they were so nervous that they decided not to have me speak on the national theme, which is African Americans and the vote, for fear I might criticize the president. So they had me lecture on Black Georgetown.
They want you to criticize the president?
They were just worried, and even when they said, well, look, we don't want, no, they didn't want me to criticize the president.
I'm going to criticize him in a minute.
They also, well, are you going to mention, when you do your lecture on blacks in Georgetown, are you going to mention our agency? No, I don't mention your agency. There's too much other stuff happening. But it's a shame that people have to be that concerned. But that's, you know, that's the condition we live in.
Now, I want to get your thoughts on reparations, but I also want to spend a little time talking about Black Georgetown as well.
Okay.
But before we get into a piece on reparations, I like to share my reparations poem.
Okay.
And it's simply entitled, "Pay Me My Money." Just so you pay me all that I'm due. If you have to rob Peter to pay Paul, that's on you. I'm coming from all ends just to make ends meet. So I'm overworked, underpaid, and dead on my feet. Don't want to rain on nobody's parade, but I want what I need, and I'm trying to get paid. And if you don't have it, no, I won't try and understand. So pay me my money, all of my money, just as soon as you can. I can't help but to regret it, because sometimes it's gone before I get it. And if I had what's due to me instead of just making do, I could pay Peter, Paul, and Mr. Bobo too. Don't mean to rain on nobody's parade, but I want what I need, and I'm trying to get paid. And if you don't have it, no, I won't try and understand. So pay me my money, all of my money, just as soon as you can. Pay me my money. That's a reparations poem, y'all. Let's start there.
I recently I was part of a panel on one of the newest black media outlet, which is called Black News. And I don't know when it'll be on, so you know, I can't tell you. Del Walters was the host. And I told them that a recurring theme in the history of African people is seeking just compensation for your labor. And I gave them an early example of a woman named Belinda. She's often referred to as Belinda Royale. This is 1783. And she petitioned the Massachusetts legislature to be paid for the uncompensated labor she had given her master, Isaac Royale, who had been a Tory. Now, in the 1700s, during the period of the American Revolution, a Tory was a pro-British American. In fact, Isaac Royale was not only pro-British, Brother Danny, he was one of the largest slave owner in the colony of Massachusetts and one of the richest men in the colony of Massachusetts. He ultimately left behind his property and his possessions and relocated to Nova Scotia. So Belinda, she is now old. She has a disabled daughter. She said, I've given this man the literal best years of my life. I want to get paid. I want my money. 1783. So she files a petition on Valentine's Day, 1783.
What a day.
And it was no Valentine for Mr. Royal. She was able to get payments of something on the order of about 12 pounds, 15 shillings. And she got several of them. Now, in those days, what could you do with 12 pounds, 15 shillings? You could buy a horse. You could hire the labor of a skilled worker for about 100 days a year. Well, of course, you know, that it may not have fed you for an entire year, but it was better than nothing.
Yes.
And then we have the story of Henrietta Woods, who sued her master. In fact, in a court in Ohio in 1870. The man had lured her back across the Ohio River into slavery, depending upon the source, either in 1853 or 1848. But sis, in any event, sued him in Ohio. The courts, the suit worked its way through the court for 8 years. She did not get paid for 8 years.
8 years.
And though she
Wow.
filed for $20,000 in 1870, the court did give her 2,500. So that was something. But these are two real-time, as far as I'm concerned, examples
Yes.
of our desire to be paid somebody
Pay
other
me
than
my
us.
money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we realize that you getting rich.
Yes, and we
You know,
get nothing.
And we're getting nothing.
No, so pay me my money.
Pay me my money.
Yeah, simple as that. Let's talk about Georgetown, Black Georgetown, and the significance of this book here. This one?
Yeah, Black Georgetown,
Black
remember,
Georgetown.
this is the special 25th anniversary edition. It's amazing. It doesn't seem as though the book's been around 25 years. A little bit
Wow.
over 25 years now, closer to 30. And it came out of a desire to document the Black past in Georgetown on the 200th anniversary of the founding of Georgetown University. Little did they know that they were opening a few doors that they had not intended.
Wow.
I got a chance to talk about the Black community in Georgetown. We now know so much more. For example, there will be a memorial in Mount Zion Cemetery put there by the UN to acknowledge that Mount Zion Cemetery, the cemetery of the oldest congregation in the District of Columbia, is a internationally recognized UN site of memory. And also they're going to put another memorial at the foot of Wisconsin Avenue, somewhere in that park, along the river, because we now know that Georgetown received shipments of enslaved Africans directly from the motherland.
Wow.
Directly from the motherland.
That could be a documentary in itself.
In and of itself.
Yes.
So, this is a way that we continue to fold back the closed pages of the history of Black folk in this community. And we find, it seems, Brother Danny, as though the ancestors will not be silent. It's only been a couple of years that they found another slave graveyard on the campus of Georgetown University.
Really?
Another one. They were working around what's called, for those who have been students or know the campus, Arube Hall, Pager Arube Hall, and ran into human remains.
Oh, wow.
Just when they thought they had it, and of course around the same time, they're hit with increased knowledge of how in the 1830s the sale of more than 200 people, Africans owned by the university, saved what was then known as Georgetown College.
Wow.
So and now the descendants of those folk, most of whom were sold to Louisiana, to slave owners in Louisiana, they say, we saved this institution.
Yes.
Pay me my money. I want my ancestors' sweat and sinew to be recognized, that they were able to save this university.
Yes.
And so Georgetown, and not all descendants are happy about it, but there are a couple on campus now that are attending classes, the descendants of those more than 200 enslaved Africans that were sold to save the university. And the university has renamed a couple of buildings, that kind of thing.
Well, that's nice, but pay me my money.
Well, let's just say that in a capitalist society, the utmost assuagement is to be financially compensated.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean that's what it
how
comes
is.
down to.
Yeah.
Now, Doc, let's mention all your books before we have to go.
Okay, well, we haven't as of yet mentioned Black, Copper, and Bright, the first book ever on the District of Columbia's Black Civil War Regiment.
Oh, wow.
It is little known and even less taught that Black men representing the nation's capital fought in the Civil War in a regiment known as the 1st Regiment United States Colored Troops. Not that it was the first regiment in the Union Army, but it was the first regiment directly recruited by the U.S. Colored Troops Bureau.
Oh, wow.
So that's another one. We have the children's book,
Yes.
Friends of
What's
Frederick Douglass.
Yeah, let's hold that up real quick.
Yes, indeed. Okay, which teaches based on the letters and autobiographies of Frederick Douglass. This is a reminder of some of the great people that he worked with. Not only Harriet Tubman or Sojourner Truth or Charles Sumner, but also Nat Turner. It also Ebenezer Don Carlos Bassett, the first Black diplomat. These are people that you're not going to run across in your average history book.
You know, like we were saying earlier, Doc, Black history is 24/7, 365.
Absolutely, my brother.
And let me say this, my new book, the Book of Tributes, of course, is out. It's on sale. I'll be doing a book signing right here at the Everlasting Life, the E-Life Network. We have a bunch of authors out there. We have a bunch of vendors out here every first Saturday. And y'all come on by today. And of course, the address is, if I can see it, 91. Let me put on my specs here real quick. At Everlasting Life, come on by. 9185 Central Avenue, Capitol Heights, Maryland. Come on by. It's the life. It's Everlasting Life. Come on by, get something to eat, and enjoy the vendors. And come on by. Let me sign your book. This is Danny Queens from Color Me Poetry. And until next time, color me poetry. Love, peace, poetry. I am, I can, and I will. Thanks, Doc, for coming.
Thank you.